there, welcome back to Inde-Car on the 24th of April today. It's not often I get the chance to give you some good news, far less the chance to give you 2 or 3 pieces of good news all in one show, but tonight is a bit of an exception. There have been reports today, in fact breaking news today coming from the national newspaper, that it's been revealed that since the SNP changed the tax bands, in other words, they introduced a new level of tax for higher incomes, that counter to what is being told to us in the media, particularly by unionist politicians, we haven't seen an exodus of high-earning Scots from Scotland to England. Because the taxes are slightly higher. In fact, according to the National, in the breaking news story today, the complete opposite is true. In fact, many more thousands of Scots have many more thousands of people have migrated to Scotland, into it, than have actually left it in the last 2 years. In fact, since this new change to the income tax thresholds and the income tax rates have changed, since that came into force, there's actually been more people coming to live in Scotland than there have been leaving. So it's a complete nonsense for the unionist parties, the Conservatives, the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats, to claim that this is going to chase away the most smart people from Scotland and force them to leave because of the high taxes here. So it's been a total reversal of that story. More people want to come to Scotland because it's nicer to live here. The cost of housing is far less. The pace of life is less frenetic. There's more space. There's more fresh air. And generally speaking, Scotland is a much more welcoming place. So that's the first piece of good news, that net migration into Scotland since that tax rate was changed and raised has actually gone up, not down. Now, the second interesting piece of good news was actually reported by the BBC this afternoon, and they published a piece on their website, including a piece of video, which shows the first of 2 sections of the new Renfrew Bridge. Now, the new Renfrew Bridge is part of a Scottish Government plan to link up the northwest of Glasgow with the town of Renfrew on the other side of the Clyde, on the south side of the river. And it's proposed that this double bridge, which is going to be a 2-way bridge for cars and foot traffic, will span the river between the town of Renfrew and Inde-Car railway station to the northwest of Glasgow, midway, I guess, between, I suppose, the city of Glasgow and Clyde Bank. Now, the great thing about this story is that the bridge will cost £117 million, which, if you think about it, is not really that much. But what it does is it finally links Renfrew up with the rest of Glasgow. Poor old Renfrew has largely been ignored as the M8 bypasses it. Renfrew lost its airport as well when Glasgow Airport became the main international air hub for the west of Scotland. And so poor old Renfrew has largely been in the doldrums a little bit, and it hasn't had much in the way of visitors, simply because it's become a bit of a backwater, which is an absolute crying shame. I pass by the Inde-Car ferry virtually every day in the course of my work, and of course the Inde-Car ferry, far from being a car ferry anymore, is now simply an 18-foot aluminium skiff, basically with a roof and an outboard motor, which basically plies back and forward the 70 or so metres from one side of the Clyde to the other, ferrying foot passengers from Inde-Car to Renfrew. So that was the only link that Inde-Car and Renfrew had until now. This new development of the Renfrew Bridge, the link between Renfrew and Inde-Car in the northwest of Glasgow, is important for a few reasons. And the main one is, I think, the fact that not only is a bridge being built, but an entirely new waterfront complex is being built on both sides of the river, including, first of all, the demolition of some incredibly ugly flats, which were, I believe at the time, they were social housing projects built by the City of Glasgow. Or perhaps it was West Dunbartonshire Council. But anyway, they've come down, and in their place are some beautiful new normal sized houses, terrace homes and so on, right next to the very handily placed Yoker railway station. And this bridge is literally going to come directly from where Yoker railway station is, straight over the Clyde and into Renfrew. Now, Renfrew is a beautiful little town. Those of you who've never been there, you should go, because once this bridge is built, and it's happening this year, the two sides of the river will be linked up for the first time with a physical bridge. Now, my understanding is that this is a two-part bridge. What I don't know at the moment, I remain to be corrected on this. I believe this is a permanent bridge, so it's not a swing bridge which opens to allow shipping through. If that's the case, then this bridge is going to have to be pretty high to allow shipping to pass. If I'm wrong, and the two parts actually do swing, which is entirely possible, it looks like it might be that design, then this bridge will open and close a little bit like Tower Bridge, only sort of horizontally to allow shipping to pass. Either way, it links up Renfrew, which is at a sort of confluence, a joining of the White Cart water, the river which flows through Paisley, and joins the Clyde on the opposite bank from what used to be John Brenn's shipyard in Clyde Bank. So it's been kind of isolated in a little annexed area between two rivers for probably the last 40 or 50 years, and it's high time Renfrew was linked up. They reckon that it will bring up to 1,000 new jobs to Renfrew, and not to mention the fact that it's going to attract more people to live in Yoker, which until recently was largely regarded as a large railway depot. In fact, there are still some large sidings, and there is a railway depot there owned by ScotRail. However, much of the land which ScotRail owned for sidings has been sold and is being developed or redeveloped into flats, both affordable flats to purchase and also social rental flats, as well as this new village which is being built next to the railway station. I'm not absolutely certain what they're building on the other side of the river in Renfrew, but I've seen some artists' impressions and it looks pretty nice. There's some beautiful parkland, public spaces, new flats, all to be built on the other side of the river as well. This is a huge project and something which Wellbeing Scotland, part of the Scottish Government, had a big hand in. So another piece of extremely good news for the city I live in anyway. The final interesting piece of, I think it's good news. Peter Bell, who you may know as an independence blogger, a very outspoken one at that, and a harsh critic of the SNP, posted a link to a fairly lengthy video shot by Independence Live, my good old friend Kevin at Independence Live, on an evening with. This was an event organised under the Believe in Scotland banner, which had 4 guest speakers, including Peter Bell, Neil Hanvey MP, Alan Petrie and Sally Hughes, who are both also independent candidates in the upcoming general election. And it was looking at the relevance of the general election to independence. Now, Peter Bell, who I have to agree with on many things, Peter and I share a lot of opinions on things. Peter came on first and basically said what everybody was thinking in that hall, which was that this general election, which is about to happen, will have no effect whatsoever, really, on the cause of independence. Even Neil Hanvey also echoed this and said that he pretty much agreed that it doesn't have any direct relevance. Alan Petrie made an impassioned plea for the socialists amongst us, really, to attack poverty in Scotland, which is a direct result of being ruled by Westminster and requires independence for us to change it. Sally Hughes, a former police officer, is standing for the first time as a candidate, as an MP. I'm trying to remember exactly which constituency. I think it's in Perthshire. Sorry, Sally, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong. And Sally made also an interesting plea. She, like all of the speakers at this evening, said the same thing. We're not going to be asking for our independence this time. We're not going to be begging permission for a Section 30 order. This time we're going to take our independence. Now, before you all start thinking that there's going to be some kind of uprising, I can assure you from what Neil Hanvey was saying, that's not going to be the case. Everybody has agreed that this will be done scrupulously in a democratic way. Neil Hanvey made the point that although the election to Westminster is not entirely relevant in the terms of directly relevant to independence, plays a role in it. His argument is that we should elect as many pro-independence MPs as we can. Not because they can overly influence what goes on in Westminster, because we know that's not possible because they're vastly outnumbered, but so that come 2026, and this is where I also agree and echo the opinions of others, Peter Bell and Neil Hanvey and myself, all in agreement that 2026 is actually the key year for Scottish independence, because it's at that point where we have our own general election for Holyrood that we have a chance to do something about it. Now, we may disagree on the actual mechanisms for this. My opinion is that a simple vote count, in other words, any vote for any pro-independence candidate in the Holyrood election, all of those should be tallied up. And if those votes outweigh the combined votes for all the unionist parties, then we can declare our independence by simply empowering our own parliament and the new government which is formed with a majority for independence or independence supporting candidates. That government can then declare independence. Now, that would be my opinion. Neil Hanvey's opinion is that we should elect as many pro-independence officials as we can to Holyrood, and then pass a new bill which would create a new independence convention, for want of a better word. Now, I know that Salvo has already created a body. It's not called the Scottish Independence Convention or anything like that. It's not in that vein. It is the same idea. The idea is a Scottish National Congress, which is in fact similar to what happened in South Africa. The African National Congress, the ANC, was primarily Nelson Mandela's party and also became the government. What Salvo is doing is creating a Scottish National Congress, and that Scottish National Congress would be, what Neil Hanvey was describing, a convention of all of our elected officials, all of the Scottish MPs, all of the Scottish MSPs, and if there is a majority in that grouping of all of our elected officials, and that may include councillors as well, incidentally, anyone who's elected to official office, if there is a majority in that entire convention, or whatever we want to call it, for independence, then a declaration can be made. Because it demonstrates that there is a majority of independence elected officials who want to declare independence, and in doing that they could make a unilateral declaration of independence, and independence would be taken. They would have to invite Westminster to talk about how separation would take place. Westminster would probably deny that they had any right to do so, and I guess would resist it, and we would end up going our separate ways without the agreement of Westminster at some point, because we know that they're just not going to play ball. They certainly aren't going to give us a Section 30 order. I think everyone has agreed on that. What was interesting about it was the mood of the audience at this event. Everyone, I'd say the majority of people in that room, were clapping and cheering Peter Bell. They were clapping and cheering Neil Hanvey. They were clapping and cheering all four of the speakers. All of them have said the same things. Independence needs to be taken this time. We must learn the lessons of 2014. Let's not rework the same arguments. Peter Bell pointed out that the old arguments are stale. They're stuck. They're fixed. They cede power to Westminster. They recommend that we beg and wait for Westminster to give us permission. We can't do that. We know it doesn't work. And so everyone agreed at that meeting that we have to take our independence, and we have to do it in the most democratic fashion that we can. Neil Hanvey's opinion is that we have to elect all these officials first, and then we need to assemble them into some kind of convention or National Congress, whatever you want to call it, and if there's a majority there, then we declare our independence, because we have gone as far democratically as we can go, and we have a mandate which we can action, and the international community would respect it. So these opinions were interesting to hear, because it's the first time I've publicly heard these things said, and I think they need to be said more often. Anyway, that's the show for tonight, but I thought you might be interested to know that Scotland has now got more people wanting to come here despite the alleged higher taxation than are leaving. The Renfrew Bridge, linking up essentially a small town which has been bypassed by the massive investment in Glasgow as the city and left behind, is now going to be joined up with the rest of the northwest of the city. It will mean that people from Renfrew, for example, would be able to travel anywhere to the northwest of Glasgow. They could go up to Loch Lomond, they could go any place actually, Bearsden, Mulgai, the West End, and they could get in and out much more quickly. So it's great news from that point of view, and also people from the northwest of the city of Glasgow can also get now into Renfrew for the first time ever by a direct fixed route. And this will be fantastic, and it's going to look wonderful, and it's going to regenerate two areas of Glasgow and the south, I would say southwest of Glasgow. I mean, Renfrew is a town in its own right. And regenerate these areas and link them up and bring jobs to these areas. It can only be good. So it's been a good day for Scotland today. And when the weather is nice like this, it's hard to feel down in the dumps. So, as I always say, keep the faith. People are now talking about doing something about independence, not just talking about it, not just getting people to support the idea of it, not making any kind of financial case for it. This is a political decision, and it's a decision which only the people of Scotland can make. And this was reiterated time and again by all four speakers at this event. The people are the people. The people are the ones who are going to decide this. The politicians' job is to make sure as many of them are elected as possible by those very people, so that independence can be declared after 2026. Anyway, I will leave you with that thought. In the meantime, keep the faith, and I'll see you later. Please keep donating if you can find the link. I'll try and repost it on my Facebook page. I'll also try and post it here on YouTube as well, and any other place I can put it. Your help is always greatly appreciated and needed, especially when I'm trying to make as much content as possible. Anyway, thanks for your attention. Keep the faith on. I'll see you next time on Inde-Car. Bye for now.